alive with episode 72.
72 of all the horrible things. That's pretty impressive. We're on our way to 100.
Really close.
Yeah. We've been doing the thing.
We're doing a thing. It's been over a year. And we would still like to build this audience, right? We still need some listeners, so share and share alike.
For sure. It's very interesting to see also like our stats. Like last week seemed to be doing better on YouTube than normal.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's because it was freshly dropped on digital. I'm a little worried about today's though, because we're talking about a couple of older films.
These are a little dated, but I think these are movies that one you might want to just revisit, like I did with Red Eye, and then Blood Red Sky I feel is like gone under the radar.
Completely agree. I think it's because of the pandemic that people missed the boat on this one. And of course it's German. There is English speaking in it though. But yeah, why are we doing this? Why are we going Red Eye and Blood Red Sky?
We're talking travel horror because you and I are headed out of town next week, not together. It just timed out that way, you know. It just lined up.
It's a good time to go out, though, right?
Yeah.
Get out of town. If you're willing to share, where you going?
We're going to Hawaii.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
We're going to the island of Kauai, which is where they filmed Jurassic Park, which I know you're a big fan of.
Oh my God. Seriously?
Yes.
I thought you were going to Maui to clean shit up, and here you are just fanboying it up with the dinosaur sceneries.
No, we didn't think it'd be appropriate to go to Maui.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. No laughing matter either.
No laughing
but
matter.
I'm super jealous.
Yeah.
We're just hitting the old Colorado mountains, and upcoming will be a Shining cast because we're going to the Shining Hotel, which is very exciting.
Amazing. The Shining is a movie that I've wanted Nora to watch forever. She's never watched it, so this is going to be really well timed out as well.
She's never seen The Shining?
She's finally going to have to watch this.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow. Yeah, I'm
exciting.
in the middle of watching for the first time the miniseries of it, which all the teleplays were done by Stephen King, and famously, we'll get more into it when we do the Shining cast. Stephen King didn't like Kubrick's version, and this one, directed by Mick Garris, so people know him in the industry. Horror zone. It's better than I thought it would be so far, you know?
Yeah, it was I remember watching it when it came out. I think it was like just a TV miniseries, so they were limited with what they could do. But stars Steven Weber, whom I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, I like him. I just think that's the tallest task in the world to take on a role that was so iconically done by one and only Mr. Nicholson.
Yeah.
But let's not talk that. Let's talk this travel horror. I got my seat pillow affixed for this.
Your flotation device is
easy.
under the seat, or your seat will be used as a flotation device, depending on your aircraft.
Let's first talk Red Eye. What do you think?
Yeah, this was a movie that, man, I thought I remembered better, but I felt like I was watching it for the first time.
Really?
There was a couple scenes that I recalled, but it really did feel like a first-time viewing for me. I mean, the cast is really fun. Cillian Murphy, and how about Brian Cox with that hair?
Oh my goodness! Now that is a dye job if I've ever seen one. Here's a question for you. You're saying it felt like the first time for you. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it was a bad thing. It was more of just, I watched this a long time ago and it just didn't stick with me, not in a bad way, just because there are a lot of movies out there about what we're talking about here, whether it's snakes on a plane or terrorists or hijackers. There's a lot of I just last month finished up a new Apple TV series called Hijack with Idris Elba. And
I liked it a lot.
I did too. And I think it's just a genre that is, well populated. And I think, we've had a lot come out recently. So to me, I think it just got sort of left behind.
Yeah,
in my memories.
I saw it in the theater. I remember having mixed feelings about it because I'm such a Wes Craven fan.
Yeah.
And this is fresh off of his crazy success with Scream 3 came out 5 years prior. And then he had this kind of like little interim there. He's got just a little video that he directed in 2002 called Tales That'll Tear Your Heart Out. But then the same year that Red Eye was directed and released by him, also Cursed which is a vampire film, I believe, starring Christina Ricci.
Yeah.
And I put it in the same category as they're kind of forgettable. And I completely agree with you. There is stuff worth big upping, I guess. But first of all, let's talk about the length of it, because it's barely a movie.
Yeah. Which is really interesting because while I was watching this movie, I was thinking, how long is this flight? I mean, they made it seem like this flight was even longer, but the movie flies by.
Yeah, oh, very nice. I see what you did there. It's an hour and 15 minutes with the credits, including the credits.
I bet you a lot was cut out, too, weirdly. I bet it was boring.
Well, I guess supposedly they initially had a $44 million budget, and then it was sliced down to $25 million, so that's a big cut. But I feel like there was opportunity. I feel like I wanted a half an hour more of tension on the flight, maybe even 15 more on the flight, and then 15 after they get off the flight, because personally for me, the best part of the film is what Wes Craven does so well, and it takes place at the house where there's the cat and mouse between Cillian Murphy and Rachel McAdams. That's the most exciting part, what goes down, I feel like, and after the flight.
Right. I was going to say, this is supposed to be a movie that takes place on an airplane, and you just described the best scene, which isn't on an airplane. And I agree with you. I think there should have been more opportunities. Maybe they should have picked a longer flight. Maybe it should have been more, tense and not just such a commute, really, instead of a long flight. And I think there could have been like more characters.
That's what I'm saying. You actually had some really great character actors in there, and they kind of set it up at the beginning like, okay, we're going to get to see all these kind of like disparate, unique archetypals interact and kind of thwart what Cillian Murphy's trying to do. But it's done so minutely. Like, take, for example, there's an amazing old lady in it who adores the book that she's reading by Dr. Phil, which I found a little off character for her to be reading the Dr. Phil. But that being said, she is in hospitality, so maybe placating as they play up so much at the beginning. I just felt like there was the opportunity with the smug doctor to have more of him. You get this like ridiculously buxom blonde who's hitting on Cillian Murphy. There's no payoffs with these characters that could have been really fun. Even like with the little girl who's traveling alone, they spend so much time on that at the beginning.
There's not a big enough payoff.
No, all she does is pretty much trip Cillian Murphy as she's trying to run. He falls so much, so many trips in this. No pun intended. But yeah, he's falling left and right, and that kind of bothered me. Also, here, I got a question for you. I appreciate that Wes Craven was trying to set it up as a rom-com that then turns into thriller, right? But what's the point of Cillian, beyond structural genre flippery, Cillian Murphy flirting with her and really setting the groundwork and greasing her wheels at the beginning and have stalked her for so long? He knows that she drinks Sea Breeze, not Bay Breezes, a little annoyed when she... What's the point of that? The flirtation? Like, she's not going to feel comfortable with him once she knows that he's blackmailing her, willing to kill her father. Right?
I think you're right, and I think the only way that would have paid off is if he was able to then talk someone out of their seat to switch to put himself, because if he's already seated next to her, he didn't have to do all that groundwork.
That would have made sense. That would have given his character more like
charm.
charm and just ability. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
he'd be scarier. Have you heard about the casting business that went on with Red Eye initially?
No.
So Cillian Murphy wanted this role so much that 2 days before his wedding, he flew out from the UK to Hollywood to have lunch with Craven. And he got the part just apparently because of his beautiful eyes.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, this is fairly recent after 28 Days Later, which I feel like is his ultimate. And I guess people would argue Oppenheimer now, but still 28 Days Later is my movie.
Same.
For him. But do you find him villain?
Right. I wanted to talk about this a lot, too, because I think he is a fantastic actor. I think he can play super creepy, but I don't think he played the villain enough. Like, I think this movie would have been much different if you had someone a little bit more brooding or maybe physically larger or... I don't know. Like, you know who would have been really great in this part was Timothy Olyphant. Like, just because...
Oh, yeah.
He had worked with Wes Craven. I think he could have been charming like Cillian, but I agree with you. I don't think he is like the perfect villain for this. I don't buy that he works.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I don't buy that he's like this. What is he, like a gun for hire type of a thing? Like, who is he? We don't know that he. I mean, he works for this organization. Were they Russians? Were they foreign? Did I miss that?
They do speak Russians, the bad guys. That's established. But he certainly isn't Russian himself. Well, here's the thing. You're absolutely right, and that's why I'm surprised I'm giving the role. First of all, I guess it's a dated haircut, but that haircut makes him soft. Right?
Yeah.
I didn't like the haircut. It's just so flat. It feels like he's got a low-flow faucet sort of situation happen.
Agreed.
But the fact that he did flirt with her at the beginning also made him soft to me, and it seemed pointless. I didn't really buy his character in that way. But here's what it was initially supposed to be cast as. This was written for Sean Penn and Robin Wright Penn.
Oh,
better.
That
would
have been good.
I think it would have been good too because they have that natural chemistry at that time because they were together.
Yeah.
I think they could have pushed the limits in a way that you might be a little safe when, you got two actors that are just acting.
Right, and I think Sean Penn can play villainous.
Scary.
Scary villainous. Like, you're making me uncomfortable.
Even when he's a good guy, he makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, but I think Cillian Murphy is just kind of creepy. And, I don't know.
I agree. The other guys that were up for the role who auditioned, Adrian Brody. What do you think?
Nope.
How would that have been?
No.
That wouldn't have worked?
No, and I like Adrian Brody a lot.
Lurching over the girl. But it might have made a little more sense when they're talking about this horrible stuff and nobody hears this. Nobody notices when he headbutts her.
Oh, God. I know. That scene bothers me as well.
That was kind of silly. And then the last one, which I would have loved to see, would have been so fun to see Jon Favreau, who was up for the role.
That would have been interesting.
Pappy. That would have. I would love to have seen that, honestly. I think he could have pulled it off.
Yeah, this may have been... I'm just trying to picture at what stage Jon Favreau... Because, he's fluctuated his appearance. The guy has been skinny... He's been big. He's been in between. He's been muscular. And I've seen him in a rom-com where he's jacked. Or in that
Friends,
football movie, The
Isn't
Replacements.
He jacked in
Right.
I think that would have worked. That being said, I mean, you do have two great actors, and I think they do as much as they can with what they're given. I guess it's just the cheesy assassination plot that really is. I don't give a crap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't have any resonance. The thrill, I guess, isn't there. And we don't know her enough up to the point that she's being threatened, other than one conversation with the front desk receptionist, Jayma Mays. I guess that was the first time she was ever in anything, too. So that's interesting.
She was fun.
And then
she was fun in that role.
Short little discussion with her dad on the phone before she goes, just establishing that she was at grandma's funeral and that the parents are divorced. you don't know her enough to really give a crap other than Rachel McAdams. I care because of that,
Right.
I guess. What did you like? What really works for you?
I liked. I mean, there are some scenes on the flight that do work. You know, I mean, I agree. I struggle with the assassination plot. Like, it only became interesting when you find out that they're gonna wipe out the guy's entire family and not just.
That's true. I was like, wait a minute. They don't got a sniper. It's a freaking bazooka.
Yeah, well, I wasn't expecting that either, that they fished out a bazooka from the ocean.
That was cool. The way that they hid the weapon, that was cool. I hadn't seen anything like that before.
That made sense. That was good. I don't know. I mean, I think I wish there would have been more of a transition to creepy, because once Killian is seated, he kind of like goes from the charming guy to this is about you, and it just didn't work for me. But I'm trying to find the things that I mean, because I do think it's a fun thrill ride still. If you can get past the fact that some of these things aren't as emotionally, the stakes aren't as high.
It's not fleshed out enough to be a good film. That being said, the time that it was released, it was praised. It got really decent reviews. You know what I mean? 3.5 out of 4 stars on a lot of these sites. Like, Roger Ebert loved it. Peter Travers, Rolling Stone, loved it. So, I mean, it was doing something right. I think a lot of people called it like an economical, effective thriller. But we did lose connection there, apparently. But hopefully we're back in business.
I think so.
It was also fun looking at the early tech, like these phones. Do you remember the phones on the back of the plane
phones
like
on
that?
the plane? Yeah.
That was kind of fun.
Never used one.
Never either. And
the idea, it was terrifying because it was like the credit card slot was attached to it, and you're like, nope, not using that.
And her Nokia. And then I will say the whole house scene, as we noted at the end, it felt like we were in Craven's comfortable territory, and it was fun seeing the slipping aside and then the final girl, taking him down.
Yeah, it basically turned to Scream at the end there.
It did, and that's what he does best.
He was chasing her around with a knife. There was one thing I didn't get, though. She locks herself in the bathroom or a room, and he's using the knife to, like, pry it.
What was he doing there?
So I think he was trying to, like, as if you were to, like, take a credit card and try to, like, move the ledge. I think he breaks the knife, though. I think he breaks it off there. And then a few moments later, it's fully knifed again.
That's not great.
No. So there's little things like that I'm like, well, not Scream. It's not Scream.
I missed one dude that was up for the role as well, who would have been the worst.
Okay.
Zach Braff.
Oh, boy.
He was up for it. He was hot then, that old Braff.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing T-Mobile commercials at that point.
I think the audience would have had a really tough time with that one.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah,
Let's agree that Cillian Murphy is a way better choice than Zach Braff in this role.
Absolutely. If you'd given him more of a tight haircut and put some freaking chapstick on the man, because his lips were so bloody and chapped, it was gross to look at, honestly.
Yeah, was that a character and actor's choice there?
Yeah, maybe it was. Craven's all like, it looks natural. Let's keep it.
Yeah. Flights can be dry. Flights can be dry.
Here is why I think it did get good reviews at the time, and why it might have been scarier back in 2005.
Okay.
And that's because it's fresh off the heels, not fresh off the heels,
Sure.
but only a few years off the heels
9/11.
of 9/11. And of course, they're trying to assassinate the head of Homeland Security.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is clearly all like a cathartic thriller release of what happened then. And I think if I still had that so fresh in my memory, it would have had more of an impact. That being said, I didn't see it in the theater, and I don't remember it really working for me. But I could see how it could have for others, and in that sense, it'd be scary. But I would almost argue this is barely horror. I mean, certainly Craven's name's
Thriller.
on it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Let's talk about a real horror.
Let's talk about a movie that, if you haven't seen it on Netflix, you need to, because it's just really fun concept. It's got really fun character relationships between the mother and the son. It does a pretty good job of mixing up, like, it's not just linear. It starts off,
right,
with the plane landed. So I like that. I like that we don't have to worry about, oh, they're going to try to crash this plane. Like, we see that it's there's a guy in the booth in Scotland telling somebody who's not the pilot that it's landing. So there's little things like that that were really effective. I think that this may have been Germany's response to perhaps Train to Busan. You see trains with zombies and trains are like, well, we want to do something. Let's do vampires in a plane. So
I see that.
Especially with the relationship. It's a mother and son as opposed to the father and daughter. They just flipped it. And I think it's a really well-produced, well-directed movie.
It's the most successful German film ever on Netflix.
Wow.
There were 50 million viewers that first week. Supposedly it did so well, there's going to be a sequel.
I can see that.
Why I knew I really loved this film, and it would probably make my top vampire films. Because it's the first time in a long time, and this is straight, it's a full 2 hours. It's a full 2-hour film. We turned it on and watched it through. No bathroom breaks, no getting up for a snack, no getting up for a refill. We just watched it through because it was that gripping, in my opinion. You're absolutely right about the structure, keeping things interesting. Certainly you have the kind of the flash forward. You see the plane had landed, and then you have the red herring with the Middle Eastern character in the cockpit. Granted, he's lost a hand. You kind of get the sense that he's not the bad guy.
Which they had him handcuffed at the end, which doesn't make sense.
Right? That was a huge error.
That's just like an insult.
Yeah, that was kind of silly. The very end, I got issues, so we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, even just seeing how she became a vampire, and I actually believed the relationship with her husband. You know what I mean? It was a very tender snapshot of the family that they were going to have. I feel like just them kind of like singing the song together in the car. For some reason, I think that could have not worked on so many occasions, and it worked for me in this one.
It does work. It does work because it's also, that's being told in a flashback, so you're not stuck on the plane. Sometimes that can be, slowing the pace down.
And
the
static.
thing that's really interesting about it, though, is that you learn that we already know how old the son is, and now we know that when this happened, it was a baby. She had a baby, so she's been living with this, like trying to find a solution. And that's where I have one question, and it's my only question about the movie. When they're at the airport, this mother, our main character, is talking to a doctor in America, and they make it seem like they've got the solution for her. What? Do they know she's a vampire?
That's
they would
a
have
good
to.
question. Because you have this whole expo scene between Elias the Kid and the guy who they're going to... what's his name?
I was going to...
I don't really
want to
Omar?
guess.
Not Omar. Let me check it.
I thought it was Fareed.
It is. Is it? Yes, it is Fareed, played by Kais Seti, who I really liked, and he doesn't even have a picture here on IMDb, but the kid is really kind of like precocious, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And he first starts, he's like bouncing the basketball right in the guy's face, which I found...
he's kind of annoying.
Totally annoying. And
he's got a pretty good outlook on life, considering.
Right? And then that's very true. Yeah, my mom's a vampire, but...
We're going to America because my mom's a vampire.
What time it is in America. Good morning. It's morning in America. Yeah. Let's use my basketball as a globe, and this is...
But now we know from that moment how nice of a guy Fareed is, because a lot of people would have been like, "Get away from me! I don't like you're a very annoying child." But he's a very patient man.
He was a great, I guess. Would you consider that a lead role? I guess it is. It's pretty lead.
I would say he's part of the ensemble. Yes.
They do try there was a couple other guys in it that kind of become the lead for a second, but then they get eaten really quick.
Yes.
But as a whole, I just felt like this moved so seamlessly. There was very few parts where I was kind of like questioning the decisions, with the barring of the handcuffing a handless man. And you mentioned hijack, and I liked that it seemed to be hijack ripped off the reason that they were going to crash the plane was for the stock stuff, you know, for the stock market to crash because it was hot at the time.
With the woman on
motive.
Yeah, but with the woman on the flight who mentions that was referencing what seemed like what may have been a real story. I don't want to just because she says, they did this a few years ago to crash the stock market, and then, I kind of feel like that was plucked from reality. I don't know, but it's a really good reason, and not just. And they make it seem like those bastards. They make somebody who is Muslim read it, and they try to like.
Yes, they set up the two Middle Eastern guys who both have experience flying, and we're both going to this convention.
I'm going to convention too.
That was really well written, well thought out. Something I hadn't seen before. I definitely appreciated that. I mean, that red herring aspect was very cool. But getting back to her vampirism, I don't know if the doctor does because the kid's all mentioning they're gonna swap out her marrow or something.
Yeah,
so maybe
almost like give her a blood transfusion and replace her bone, like a bone marrow transplant. Which, I mean, that's a whole nother level. Have
this injector, right? She is injecting herself to suppress it. She didn't come up with that, right? She has to have.
No. She pulls that from the main vampire.
Oh, did she? Got it.
So when she visits the main vampire and then destroys him, and he's basically saying, "You have it in you, and you can't control it." He is saying,
That's right.
"I have had this for a long time. I have learned to control it. Whether it's this thing we created, and she took all of what he had because it's been years. The boy's got to be what 6, 7, 8. I don't know, but
yeah." Let's say
she's been living with this and suppressing it so much so that I'd like to believe that she had her hair for a long time and it maybe slowly started falling out. The more I'm thinking about it, the bone marrow makes so much sense because vampirism isn't just this in your blood. It changes you. It changes your teeth. Your skull at the end of it is changed. It was a really good detail that I hadn't thought of before.
Super effective look on the vampire. Kind of like brought me back to what the spawn of the Demeter vampire would have been. It was a Nosferatu kind of look.
Right.
What really I enjoyed was that she would rip out her own fangs.
Yes.
And there's this really quick shot of how the fangs are coming in over her human teeth.
Like from
the
a
human
bone.
teeth, they're still there. They're not falling out. It's coming on over it like a shark, like a second ring of teeth, which I'd never seen that before. That's cool.
It was very cool.
Seen the stuff where the human teeth fall out and the vampire teeth come in, but never the extra layer, which I love.
They did a great job with practical effects. The violence in this movie, and it's well done and gory. And what you just said about Demeter, this would have been a really good companion piece, like if you were watching a double feature to the last voyage of the Demeter and Blood Red Sky.
Yeah,
you can do like a planes, trains, and automobiles with vampire movies.
Old-timey one. You mentioned Busan. I feel like this takes itself more seriously than Busan, though, right?
No, I think...
It's been a while on Busan, but isn't there a little campness to it? Or am I crazy?
I don't know if there is.
Okay, all right. I'm going to have to revisit it then. Because part of what I loved about this is it really doesn't goof around, I feel like. And it easily could have, because for me, the highlight of the film was this male stewardess played by Alexander Scheer as 8-Ball.
Yeah.
This dude could play Joker. His psycho-ness is on par with the best psychos you could see on screen. I was just mesmerized by how scary this guy got.
Yeah. He was. It's funny because they had cast Dominic Purcell, which must have just been like adding a name to it. He's from Prison Break. He's the American, the one American in this movie. And he's more of like, he's the big bald guy. He's the big tough guy. And it was clearly like bringing him in for a day of shooting, and he was supposed to be like the big bad, and then this other the flight attendant, he turns out to be the crazy 8-Ball. Should have been like a wild card because he was unhinged. He had no problem killing people before he was even trying to turn himself into a vampire.
Sadistically, that's why when he does turn into the vampire, he's like the uber super scary.
Yeah.
And this guy, I want to like seek out other stuff he's done because I was so impressed. And like I said, he's the sort of character that could have ruined the film if it was mishandled by an actor, you know, trying to do what this guy did, but he did it so well.
Completely agree.
You're absolutely right. He didn't need to stab the one guy in the eye and then stab him 20
and
times
then
after
shoot
that.
our main character, a mother with a child, just because he's like, well, she didn't listen to our rules. She got up.
Yeah. I don't know. One thing that bothered me, I guess, if I'm going to get nitpicky, is when they start to change course. That's something that's like a super red flag, and they can towel down below.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, we
and
see that in the show Hijack. We see that if you break a course, every city you fly over is aware. You know, that's what air traffic controllers do. They monitor that. And these planes are basically giant computers, and they set on a course, and they just do a lot of the work. Not to take anything away from a pilot, but it's doing a lot of the work. And you're right. If it was, there should have been military planes, especially over all this NATO countries, all these NATO countries.
Struggled with that. I did also struggle when they killed the third air marshal. The guy, they find out the seat, and that's when he does stab the guy. And then one of the henchmen finds her, puts a pillow on her face, jiggles it a little bit, and apparently she's dead. She died so easily. That bothered me.
Yeah.
Another nitpicky is when there's the big showdown between 8-Ball and our lead vampire lady.
Yes.
And he's in the car, trapped in the car, and then she puts the gasoline in there and sets him on fire. How is the car not going to explode?
Yeah.
And destroy the whole plane once you set a car on fire?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that was... I mean, it was a fun image because that's basically the only way you really could... Aside from, like, the flashlight, which I thought was cool that they brought that into the UV rays. But you're right. I think the car... I think they just did it to try to, like, deform him and...
Maybe think he's dead, make him that much scurrier.
Yeah.
One thing that was funny, and this is when it really pointed to it being a German film, was he was kind of, I guess you could say, second in command, this character Carl, who was really the one constantly calling the stewardess, "You're a freaking psycho."
Yeah.
Especially like the moment when he's going to take the little girl, is threatened to open the cockpit. Did you see what he's wearing at the end when they're ready to do the drop? He's wearing like this like BDSM sort of like leather top where you see his shoulders. I couldn't take him seriously.
That's like out of a Blade movie, you know? That's like Blade 2.
He was showing some skin.
Yeah.
And that really kind of threw me off.
Yeah, very European.
Carl.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I think people... I kept seeing the ad for this one, or just, you know, the iconography
the poster.
Netflix, and I was like, I gotta watch this. This looks good. Just with the mom holding her kid, and the name itself, I think, is strong. It was supposed to be something else. I think the original title was like the flight name. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Which would have sucked. But this is a great title.
This is a great title. It's a great concept. It was the second time I watched it, and it was still as fun as the first. I would say this is like, you know, a very rewatchable vampire movie. And maybe I'm biased. I love the genre, but
completely agree. Yeah,
was totally thinking about sequels. You know, when watching this, like, what could they do? They could focus on the other family that she comes across that turns her, but you really want to kind of put it back into the sky, right? You kind of have to if it's Blood Red Sky. Oof. So
I'm not sure.
It had me thinking. It had me thinking.
I'm not sure what you do with the sequel, because is she dead? I mean, it's presumed
Yeah,
she's dead, but she is a vampire, so it's
I
hard
would
to kill
suggest she
vampires.
is because there are so many moments in this movie where, like, they already use that up on us. Is she dead? She comes back. The son ultimately makes the decision, and I think that's what actually... She's so far gone. She's full vampire now. She's been suppressing it for all these years. He knows. The boy's been living with this, and he has to make the decision. And pulls the phone out of his teddy bear. It's the child who makes the decision, and then, just...
Okay, here's what I'm thinking, because I wanted to mention, you mentioned the stupid handcuffs, but they're hauling off Farid at the end like he is a terrorist, still not knowing what's going on. And then the plane explodes in the kids there, and Farid's like, this kid, he's with me! And they're like, okay, go ahead. They let him off the freaking truck to go run and hug the kid. When they just thought he was a terrorist. I don't know what went through their head. Oh, okay, if the plane exploded, then it didn't make any sense that they would suddenly just let him out of the handcuffs.
I understand. I think it's just all a matter of perspective, and I think it's like at some point they need to... I think it's because the boy runs to him. I think maybe I'm being a little bit...
You're being generous
here.
That being said, I feel like that is, if you want to have a sequel that ties through the first one, that's your route. Farid is infected. They didn't cut off the hand in time.
He got his hand.
Farid's infected, and he's watching this kid again.
And this kid has to now take care of him like he did with his mom.
Yes, that's your only option, I feel like, to connect.
I think it would be really smart if they do a sequel to pick up immediately after this one.
That would be cool. But with the kid,
because
that becomes hard.
You're now in a foreign country still. This wasn't your destination. You're in Scotland, and you have to leave, right? So
the only hurdle to that is the kid's going to be 5 years older when they make it. You know,
they'll have to recast.
That's the problem.
But I mean,
it was awesome. Loved it. You got to see this one.
Yeah, very, very fun vampire movie. And the thing I really liked about it was that, a lot of times when your main character... So we're rooting for a vampire, which is not always the case.
True.
And when you are rooting for this vampire, it's usually because they're like... They've got it together, like a Dracula type. When this mother is actively hunting, she's stumbling into stuff. It's almost kind of like zombie-esque, It's like she is turning into a wild animal and not like the romantic Hollywood vampire. But like
a lot of pratfalls, you're right.
Yeah. She's like going after them. She's like bumping into the seats. And it's like, you know what? I'm glad that she's not like this ultimate predator. Otherwise, this would have been a lot easier for her to just take everybody out.
Yeah, she was able to take some blows. That's so funny. Like now with the baldness, all I can imagine, she's like Curly from the Three Stooges' sister is a vampire.
Just bumping into stuff and they're just tricking her. Having said that, I think it's an excellent movie.
Good ending too. The way that they do deal with 8-Ball and turning of the plane to face the sun. Cool. I dug that. I dug it because they hadn't really brought the sun into it, and they were flying all night. It was a perfect opportunity. I feel like it was a really well-written vampire film.
Yeah, and because you're on an airplane, you can easily close those. So, I mean, it was like any other vehicle would not have been able to work as well.
Too true.
Check it out,
let's
people.
hope we don't deal with vampires or Cillian Murphy on our flights.
Yeah, I'm going to be thinking about it, though.
But that's all I got. How about you?
That's it. So obviously we're out, so we won't have an episode next week.
Early October we'll be back, it sounds like.
We'll be back just in time for the Halloween season, and we can start counting down the days and reviewing everything and giving recommendations. It's the best time of the year.
Damn Skippy. And until then, stay alive.